Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. Wanted to talk a bit today about camouflage and crypsis. Crypsis is just another word used to denote disguising something. You'll have to forgive me today, I'm a little under the weather. A little raspy today. But I recently did a video about hiking your bug-out bag through the ghetto. And as an example in that video, I talked about someone who I know who lives on the streets, and I offered to buy them a new backpack because their backpack was very tattered, and they refused because they didn't want to stand out with all the tactical. They realized the importance of being a bit more low-key, and that took precedent over vanity or comfort even. In some cases it's vanity, in some cases the fear gear stuff is comfort items. So he was willing to sacrifice those two things, comfort and vanity, for security, because his security meant blending in. And this whole idea of crypsis or camouflage, I did a little bit of research on it, just a little bit of Wikipedia research really, and I really started to think that, camouflage isn't just, it's not just about blending in. There's visual camouflage, there's auditory camouflage. There's a lot of different types, visual, spatial types of camouflage from that perspective, from a sensory perspective. But blending in is so much more than just, visually blending in. It's so much more than just your typical urban breakup camo pattern. I don't know what it's called exactly, but what they, the BDUs that they issue to military fighting in urban areas, I believe there's like grays, for like the asphalt and contrast the asphalt and the darks and stuff like that. But it's so much more than that. It's so much of a way of life blending in, and it's almost like you are putting on a disguise. You are putting on an act of sorts, which brings to mind, acting skills in SHTF. Connery, the ability to con somebody, make them think one thing while you're actually doing another. Sometimes that requires pulling the goalie. Anybody knows hockey, if you want to get that extra man on the field or on the ice, you got to pull the goalie. And sometimes you have to pull some tactical in order to get that edge. And it's a hard sacrifice for a lot of people to make, because they assume that, I got to, give up some of my stuff. But there may be many instances where that's the only way you're going to get out of a situation, is if you're willing to let stuff go. If you want to blend in with the masses, you might have to let stuff go. So this ability to let stuff go is an important thing, because I think clinging too tightly to some of your possessions could potentially make a lot of trouble for you. So don't be too possessive over your stuff. Remember that your stuff is a means to survive. It's a means for your body to survive. You don't survive for stuff. You have stuff to survive. Some people forget that. I guess you could say that's in large part one of the problems with this world right now. so many people are living for stuff. Stuff isn't living for people. But I sort of digress. Talking about this camouflage things, what are some things that we can do to blend in the true spirit of the gray man? Not just, wearing a yuppie backpack. But how can we actually become a part of our environment in such a way that we don't stand out at all? There's even when you work in an office, there's a certain subculture that surrounds that would have you, wearing, dressed like everybody else, flannel shirt, khakis, depending if you're in a business attire situation. In some cases, camouflage could be wearing a 3-piece suit. That may be what gets you overlooked, whether it's by the powers that be, the police, the authorities, or whether it's, and assuming you haven't broke the law and you're just trying to, evade unjust capture or punishment or whatever treatment. It may be to your benefit to try to blend in as much as possible and not wear those sort of tactical pants and, not stand out from the rest of your coworkers in a lot of ways. Not being the black sheep visually. Gray man philosophy, to add to this, if you really wanted to take it a step further with the whole acting thing, would it be beneficial for you to want to pretend as though you had nothing? When I used to smoke cigarettes, an old tactic I used, if I knew somebody was coming up and gonna ask me for a cigarette, because I used to live in a poor end of town and people would always try bumming smokes off you, I'd always hit them up before they hit me up. I'd always stop them and sort of ask them if I could borrow a cigarette from them, pretty much implying that I had none or I had nothing. Or you could just say you don't smoke, unless they knew you smoked. Then of course you would have to try that line, just to avoid all the bartering and bargaining and all that shit. Another thing to think about is, if you don't know your neighbors too well, and they don't see you standing in a bread line, they don't see you, bringing government-issued rations back to your house, would it be in your best interest to continue to do so, or to seek out that assistance? To pretend as though you are in need of government assistance, and then perhaps to appease your conscience, donate that food to someone else anonymously. So long as your immediate community believes that you are in need of help, they won't think you have anything. Something to think about. You want to communicate to people that I have nothing, and with that comes a certain degree of freedom. When you know you got nothing to lose, you're a bit more free. And people sense that. People in the hood especially can sense when you're hiding something. I don't know what it is. If you're just walking a bit more tightly, if you're, there's a bit more tension in your walk, or, you really look like you got to get somewhere or something like that, that's an anti-gray man right there. This protective sort of demeanor is something you probably would want to avoid. Somebody sent me a link, it was one of my subscribers, Kwanzi, I believe. I think it was her. It might have been a. If I'm wrong, I will post an annotation here. But it was a link to a Die Hard movie with Bruce Willis where he's been forced to wear a sign with some racial slurs on it in the hood, or else, this guy's going to blow somebody up, or I can't remember exactly what it was. But anyways, Samuel Jackson tried to tell him to, act crazy. That's the only thing that's going to get you out of this situation, because these homies are getting ready to kick your ass. And the only thing that's going to save you is trying to act crazy. So acting crazy could be another possibility. But if you're acting crazy, you can't act crazy and be all done up and tactical. You got to play the part in full for it to be believable, in the least. Or if there's a pandemic, chances are, if you have if you put some makeup, you remember that movie The Hunger Games? There was a guy in there, he was a makeup artist. One of his skills was camouflage, and he could turn himself into a tree or all that kind of shit. Well, that's what you got to kind of think about, if there's a pandemic and people are wary of each other, but you're always going to have those marauders that are not overly concerned with hygiene and perhaps contracting the disease, unless there are very clear signs that you are in fact infected. So make it out as if you were infected. You could even try putting on a sign, and this is not related to pandemic. If with the pandemic, you could paint yourself with blood, you could, you could exhibit some symptoms, make yourself look feverish, things like that. You could even wear a sign or sit with a sign that says, need food, please help, or something to that effect. There's a lot of different approaches you could take to this. See, the whole idea of the gray man philosophy is such a... I used to only approach it from a sort of cosmetic perspective, from a surface perspective, when in reality it's, in fact, a lot more of a full spectrum approach. It's more of a lifestyle approach to things. I know one of my friends who's into bushcraft, all his stuff is really sort of rustic and basic, and he makes his own backpack, and he's he does all this sort of stuff right from the wilderness, and he all his stuff has that rustic look to it, and as sentimental as it is to him, it's a win-win twofold, because for one, it's very sentimental to him, and on the other hand, it's nobody really wants it. They want tactical, right? Not many people are gonna jump you for your handmade broadhead. So something to think about, the gray man. It really is a deeper concept than just dressing down your backpack a bit. It's wearing tattered clothes. It's, one of my subscribers talked about how, when they walked home or something from work, they worked in a bad side of town, and I apologize that I forgot who you were. Just been getting a lot of comments lately, which is great. I try to respond to all of them. He talked about how he would dress down, he'd wear some ripped up jeans, and really make it out as if he was kind of, just Joe Smo looking for, had that, try to have that snake in your eye, that you're looking for something. Because you can see that on the street when somebody's looking for something, or if they're found something and they're going a certain place, you want to look like you're looking for something. You don't want to look like you found something or you're protecting something. I just want to do a quick shout out to the prepper nurse. She is a really pleasant prepper to watch, and she always has a good topic, very soft spoken, and I think you should all check out her channel. She approaches this from a feminine perspective, but also a health professional perspective. And kind of like the urban prepper, you know, she sort of doesn't dive too deep into, you know, the full-blown SHTF as a lot of us do, but sticks perhaps a bit more to the practical stuff. But she recently made a video which talked about how they're handling the Ebola pandemic in Africa and using that as sort of, you know, a cursor for, you know, how things might play out here. And I thought that was really interesting. So I'll post a link to that video here. And by all means, let's hear your suggestions about how, you know, we can really try to maximize the approach of the gray man and really try to blend into our surroundings. One other alternative, you know, perhaps to look into is undercover police work. You know, I'm sure that there's a lot of, you know, information that they have with respect to how to do this, how to blend in, you know, because you have to, right? You have to know how to act. You have to say the right words. You got to know your stuff. But that's about all I can think about on the topic right now. So let me know what you guys think, and thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out.